So I want to move on to Elizabeth Warren, who frankly is starting to bore me a little bit. It's so predictable. I don't know who is advising Elizabeth Warren. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know if her campaign is trying a new strategy of doing things they know are going to help them lose. I just don't get it. But now Elizabeth Warren, it moved from I'm with Bernie to I'm going to do a public option and then fight for Medicare for all in year 3, which was obviously ridiculous, to now choice. We're going to emphasize choice. So Elizabeth Warren has been using new notable language at her town halls to describe the transition in Medicare for all, saying under her plan, it would be a voter's choice to opt in. While the language is already a part of her transition proposal, it's a noticeable rhetorical shift on Warren's part after her moderate Democrat rivals, namely Pete Buttigieg, have criticized her plan that would eventually eliminate private insurance. For the last 2 weeks, Warren has described the transition in her Medicare for All plan as a choice for Americans to try. A new Fox poll released Sunday showed that support for government-run health care has dropped by double digits among Democrats since October. That's okay, I read a different poll that says 62% support Medicare for all. But they'll cherry pick the polls that they want to cherry pick, and support usually falls when you have a concerted corporate media propaganda campaign against Medicare for all. During a stop in Coup, Iowa on Monday morning, 54-year-old Camille Anderson told Warren she was a fan of her Medicare for All plan, but I keep hearing from people who are afraid, A, of the cost, and B, that they're not going to be able to get the care they need or see a doctor that they want with your plan. Is there something you could say to alleviate the concerns and their fears? After a lengthy explanation of how her plan would work, the Massachusetts senator emphasized to Anderson that she believes Americans will embrace it once they see it in action. Let's let people try it. Find out what it feels like to be making healthcare decisions just between you and your medical professional to get the prescription drugs you need without having to worry about how big the copay is going to be and whether or not you're going to be able to get the prescription filled and still have enough money left over to buy the groceries this week. When tens of millions of people have had a chance to try that, I believe at that point we're going to be ready to vote for Medicare for everyone. For somebody who has plans for everything, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And it's one of the most naive things I've ever heard. So, Jen has been Tom Perez the whole time. First of all, what she's describing is essentially a public option buy-in, which is a premium. So you have to buy in to a public option. She's calling it Medicare, but you're buying in to a public option. But because Elizabeth Warren's plan will maintain private health insurance, that public option is going to have a hard time keeping costs down because the government option, which she's calling Medicare, but it's really just a public option, is not going to have the monopoly over it like it would in Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan. So she's talking about that people will smell the roses. They'll get into her Medicare plan, which, again, is not Medicare. It's a public option that is going to have a hard time controlling the cost because you still have private insurance gouging prices, and the government will have to compete with private health insurance. So I don't know what she's describing here. It's not Medicare. It's a public option, which maybe 10 to 15 years ago was more palatable, but you've seen the stories. Private health insurance costs are soaring. A story I read today, it's up 20% from last year. So I don't get what is the choice. People would need to be able to afford the premium to buy into the public option. Not everyone could do that. And then when they're in the public option, the prices are not, it's not going to be as expansive of options for doctors because you're going to still have a vibrant private health insurance industry. By the way, you're also, unless something radically changes, going to have a Republican-controlled Senate who's going to try and sabotage your public option in the first place. So I really don't know what she's talking about. And Wendell Potter, who, by the way, I've tried to reach out a couple times. He's expressed interest in doing an interview. Wendell Potter, if you don't know, is basically like a private healthcare whistleblower. He used to work for the health insurance industry, and since then he's been trying to, in his words, atone for the terrible, terrible things he and other private health insurance people have done. So he basically exposed this today. I want to read you this thread. Lately, I've noticed some Democratic politicians defending the current healthcare system by saying it preserves choice for Americans. This is what Elizabeth Warren is talking about now. As a former health insurance exec who helped draft this talking point, I need to come clean on its backstory and why it's wrong and a trap. When I worked in the insurance industry, we were instructed to talk about choice based on focus groups and people like Frank Luntz, who was a Republican pollster spawned out of Fox News. He's a terrible person. I used it all the time as an industry flack, but there was a problem. As a health insurance PR guy, we knew one of the huge vulnerabilities of the current system was a lack of choice. In the current system, you can't pick your own doctor, specialist, or hospital without huge out-of-network bills. So we set out to muddy the issue of choice. As industry insiders, we also knew most Americans have very little choice of their plan. Your company chooses an insurance provider, and you get to pick from a few different plans offered by that one insurer, usually either a high deductible plan or a higher deductible plan. Another problem insurers like mine had on the choice issue: people with employer-based plans have very little choice to keep it. You could lose it if your company changes it, or you change jobs, or turn 26, or many other ways. This is a problem for defenders of the status quo. Knowing we were losing the choice argument, my pals in the insurance industry spent millions on lobbying, ads, and spin doctors, all designed to gaslight Americans into thinking that reforming the status quo would somehow give them less choice. An industry front group launched the campaign to achieve this very purpose. Its name, My Care, My Choice. Its job, trick Americans into thinking they currently can choose any plan they want and that their plan allows them to see any doctor. They've spent big in Iowa. This isn't the first time the industry made choice a big talking point in its scheme to fight health reform. Soon after Obamacare was passed, it created a front group called the Choice and Competition Coalition to scare states away from creating exchanges with better plans. The difference is, this time, the Democrats are the ones parroting this misleading choice talking point. And they even using it as a weapon against each other. Back in my insurance PR days, this would have stunned me. I bet my old colleagues are thrilled and celebrating. The truth, of course, is you have little choice in healthcare now. Most can't keep their plan as long as they want it, or visit any doctor or hospital. Some reforms, like Medicare for All, would let you. In other words, Medicare for All actually offers more choice than the status quo. So, if a politician tells you they oppose reforming the current system because they want to preserve choice, either they don't know what they're talking about or they're willfully ignoring the truth. I assure you the insurance industry is delighted either way. I'd like that guy on television speaking on behalf of Bernie's Medicare for All plan. What could be better? Elizabeth Warren, honestly, for, some people at my old stomping grounds, TYT, I really don't know how people with a straight face say she's progressive. She might be progressive-minded on some things. I think she genuinely has disdain for the big banks. I think she genuinely feels we need tighter regulation of economic markets. I think she genuinely thinks the system is rigged, but either she's ignorant on the fact that those very banks are the ones pushing against Medicare for All, or I don't know, but this is not progressive language she is using. This is not progressive language Elizabeth Warren is using on healthcare. And frankly, I would have respected her more if she would have just come out from the beginning and say, I think we need to slowly build up to Medicare for All, and I'm going to do a public option. I don't agree with her, but at least there's some intellectual honesty in that position. She was never for Medicare for All. And frankly, I think more and more people, and it's not just Democrats, Republicans too, are seeing it's not that we can't have a universal healthcare system. These tired arguments, we're not Denmark, we're a bigger country, this and that, are irrelevant. People are waking up. And unfortunately, Elizabeth Warren is listening to the same exact losers that were in Hillary Clinton's ear, that are in Joe Biden's ear, that were in Democratic congressional candidates and Senate candidates for the last 10 years. And that is why she's sliding, for no other reason than she does not have the courage of her convictions. I don't think she's a bad person. Some of you disagree, but I'm not listen, we can't afford another 4 years of Donald Trump. I would personally deal with her if she was the nominee and vote for her, but I don't think it's going to come to that. I don't think she's as bad as Biden. I don't think she's as bad as Pete. But that's not an endorsement. You need to be better than this, Elizabeth Warren. You're a smart woman. You know what you're saying is false. So, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.